Hey everyone, this is a Nature's Calls quick call mini podcast with the Underwear Olympics NFL Combine starting tomorrow. I just wanted to put out a quick PSA and remind everybody what you should be looking at the Combine, what you shouldn't put too much stock into, as well as just a PSA to just breathe. The Combine is not the end-all be-all. There's a lot more of a tiebreaker for mid to later round guys than it is determining who your first round pick is. So with that in mind, I'm your host, Nature Erdman, and these are Nature's Calls. So the first thing I want to talk about is interviews, because every year there are teams that interview players that aren't really expected and don't interview the players that they do expect to interview. I want to remind everybody that each team only gets 45 formal interviews, and that's what you're going to hear about. There are tons of conversations that happen outside of those formal interviews, but they're going to pick and choose their 20-minute formal interviews very wisely. There's a lot of reasons to do this. You formally interview people that you question character concerns on. I would think a lot of people are going to interview Jermaine Burton. Chargers might interview Malik Neighbors because of the gun incident. I don't know how big of a deal it is, and I really wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people don't make too big of a deal about it. Or you're tied between two people. So let's say I'm high on Jacob Cowing and Malik Washington as early fourth rounders. So let's say that, hey, I really want to be able to decide who I want to go there. You go ahead and sit down and do a formal interview that way with both of them. That way you can get an idea of what you're looking to do. So if the Chargers don't interview Malik Neighbors and do interview Rome Odunze, that does not mean that we're drafting Rome Odunze. We will probably interview Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu and Dallas Turner just because he's the top edge and some cornerbacks. That does not mean that we're looking to draft them at 5. Do not be surprised if you see that, and do not be concerned if you see that. Not only does it benefit us to be able to scout them a little bit and get an idea of who they are, but it also throws a smokescreen to the rest of the league. So it's like, oh, what are the Chargers doing? Are they really going to take a tackle at 5? Yada, yada, yada. It also creates value for those players. So let's say we're interviewing Rome Odunze and other teams behind us are like, oh, shoot, like maybe they're going to go get our guy. Maybe I'm the Giants and we thought he was going to fall to us there. And now all of a sudden he's not. There's so many reasons. There's so many reasons to do this. Don't put too much stock into who you're seeing interview. What is the testing results itself? I value the testing results. I do not value the 40 time that much. I know every single year it gets blown into this massive thing of this guy ran 0.2 of a second slower than you thought. This guy ran way faster than we thought. Way faster than you think could help. Specifically at certain positions, wide receiver and cornerback. But if a running back runs 0.2 of a second slower than you thought or 0.2 of a second faster than you thought, that's not going to make or break them as a player in the league. I mean, it's very rare that the difference maker of a touchdown and not a touchdown is 0.2 of a second in 40 time. What matters a lot more is body size and shuttle drills, your 3-cone drill and your shuttle. Like, what is your lateral agility? That's what's going to matter when it comes to hitting the hole. I mean, how many 40-yard runs do you see in the league every year? What matters is, are you going to get 2-yard runs? Or are you going to get 4-yard runs? That's what matters in the NFL as a running back. So don't put too much stock into 40 times, especially for certain positions. I understand, like at quarterback, if they're that type of player, it could matter. Like Anthony Richardson testing as well as he did last year was kind of a nail in the coffin of like, okay, yes, he is as much of an athletic freak as he looks like. Because you watch him play and it's like, oh, that man's a monster. Is he really that fast, or does he just look that fast on game tape? And turns out he's really that fast. But it's just something to consider. It's something to think about. It's not something that's going to finally determine your draft grade. And if it is, it's probably a wasted pick. I mean, look at John Ross. Look at these people that are so close or do break the combine record for 40 time, and oh my God, we got to get him. He's going to be a burner. But it's like, okay, can he beat coverage? Can he get contested catches? Can he read the defense and find a soft spot in the defense? Like, that's what matters in the NFL. it's not as much just your physical traits as the combine makes it out to be. And I think a lot of it's just the fact that the combine's the first big off-season event. And so it's like, we haven't had football and we're not going to have football for a couple months. This is a big, exciting thing. But it gets overblown and too much goes into it. Like I said, I think the interviews are more important than the testing is by far. That being said, there are positions that I do value the 40. Like I said, wide receiver and corner, just to see what your top end speed is. Those people do actually sprint down the field. They're the only positions that sprint down the field very often. But I actually really like seeing the defensive lineman and offensive lineman run, and not because I just like to see the big guys run. I really like to see what your acceleration and burst is. So I'm really looking at what your 20-yard split is to see how athletic you really are, because that's what I want to see. I want to see your speed, your quickness, and power. That's what I care about in offensive and defensive linemen. And you're going to continue to see defensive tackles just break records and run ridiculous times because the defensive tackle position is changing. It's far more of a smaller, lighter weight position with athleticism than it used to be. It used to be everybody's a huge 6'5", 6'6", 360 pound dude, and you're just physically plugging holes with your body. That's not how the position plays anymore. JJ Watt and Aaron Donald have changed that, and for the better, in my opinion. And then when you do have a huge guy run, like when Jordan Davis ran and it was freakishly fast, it's awesome. It's good to see. I don't think it's really impacted him as a player overall. We knew that he had that burst and that power. I mean, Tavondre Sweat's going to run like crazy. That doesn't alleviate my questions as far as how many snaps in a game can you play. So let's just remember that. The things I do value as far as measurements, like I said, 3-cone drill and shuttle. I like to see your lateral agility in the catching drills and the hands drills for the wide receivers. I like to see how smooth you are catching the ball. I like to see if you naturally look like a hands catcher, or if you look like you're trying not to pull it into your body. I want to see your hip fluidity. Edge rushers, I really like to see the agility drills because I like to see what their bend is and what their lateral agility and quickness is, how open they can get their hips, things like that. That's a huge thing for me. Measurements. So when you come in, and I used to not be a measurements guy. Quarterback hand size isn't as huge of a thing for me. It does play a role in fumbles and stuff, but if you have slightly smaller hands than you expect, it's not a huge deal for me. I do care about what your true height measurement is. So if a quarterback says that they're 6'3" and they come in 6'1", and it's like, yeah, I thought you looked small on tape. Like, that is concerning, seeing over your offensive linemen. Wide receivers or certain positions, but like colleges lie. Colleges lie about what your height and measurements are. And so like you have a Jacob Cowing who was 5'11" all year. And I was like, man, I like Jacob Cowing. Like, it looks like he's getting separation. Play for Arizona though, so it's hard to tell against the level of competition. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, I can't remember which one, and he measures at 5'8". It's like, oof, like that actually dings you down a couple spots for me. You're now closer to a Malik Washington than you are a Ricky Pearsall for sure. And don't get me wrong, I like Jacob Cowing, but it does play a factor. Arm length. I used to be a hater on arm length and think that was a stupid argument until we picked Zion Johnson and everybody knocked his short arms. And it's like, dude, look at him play. Look at him. He's a monster out there. He's stronger than everybody else on the field. He's a day one Pro Bowler at the guard position. Turns out he wasn't. Turns out I was very wrong. And turns out the people who knocked his arm length were pretty dang right. It does look like that's an issue at the NFL level for him. So little things like that I do like to monitor and see. Quarterback drills, it's going to be interesting to see. I think quarterbacks are there a lot more for interviews and seeing how people conduct, because it is such a cerebral position. You have to be smart and you have to be able to speak to the media. And so having those interviews is important. But someone like J.J. McCarthy can really help his stock. With him not having to throw very much in college, I think that everybody's kind of curious, like, hey, can he really do it all? The one thing we do know is that when the pressure's on, he's got ice in his veins. And so I think that that's very underrated. I mean, his third down percentages and red zone percentages were ridiculous. He led them back to a national title. Like, it's impressive. And what he's done in that offense, you didn't ask him to do a lot. When you did ask him to do it, he followed through. And that's an important trait in a quarterback to me. I know a lot of people hate on him and think he's not that great because we haven't seen that much. I think he very well could be a Joe Burrow. I mean, I'll be honest, like that's his ceiling. We don't know. We have no idea. He could also be a complete bust. So we're going to find out a little bit at the combine. We're going to see him throw, and that'll be cool. I really hope he absolutely balls out. If he jumps into that top 5 conversation and we get a trade back opportunity, that's awesome for us. I am really concerned about or curious about Jaden Daniels not competing. I mean, not throwing at least. Like you thought that's his question mark, is throwing the football. So if he's not going to be out there throwing the football, that question mark remains for me. Honestly, I think that he could drop below J.J. McCarthy for sure. I thought he was going to be the 2nd overall pick, and I just don't think that that's the case anymore. But who knows? We'll see. But either way, that's really what I want to get into and remind everybody that the combine is a lot closer to, like I said, tiebreakers or those late round picks and where they're going to shuffle than it is your first round pick. Like Malik Neighbors not testing at the combine is not going to hurt him. If he did ran a little bit slow, if he ran 0.3 of a second slower than everybody thought and everybody's all of a sudden so concerned, you've seen him on game tape. You've seen his game speed. That's what matters. We're not drafting people to run sprints. We're drafting people to play football. Let's not forget that all of our film study and all of our rankings right now are based off of watching them play football. I think that everybody's draft board rankings are probably going to be higher this week than they are 4 weeks from now, because the combine gets in people's heads and it throws people off. And you have to remember that it's about football and running in underwear that these people have been training for since the season ended, training for this event. It does not affect football. I kind of liked what Marvin Harrison said today about no, I've been preparing for football. He knows exactly where he's going to go in the draft. He knows he's going to be a top 5 pick. Why would he sit there and train for 40 times and things like that when he can work on jugs machines? I like watching the combine. I enjoy that it happens. I don't want everybody to just start foregoing the combine. But at the end of the day, if you know you're a top 15 pick, you know you're a top 15 pick, and you probably shouldn't be at the combine anyway, because I want to see everybody else. I want to use this as tiebreakers. I want to help this make my decisions on those later round guys. So just want to send out that quick PSA, remind everybody that this is not the end all be all. Take a deep breath. Enjoy it. We have something going on in the world of football right now, so just soak it all in and let's enjoy this week. These were Nature's Calls, guys. Thanks for coming.